I'm going to continue to make a lot of money with real estate.
Yeah.
But I so identify with, I don't get excited about boxes on dirt. Do I get excited to see a big check? Sure, that's great.
Yeah.
But I get so much more excitement when
Let's go. We'll just kind of keep the conversation going like it has been.
Okay.
Double doors, so it's soundproofed, if you'll notice.
Making notes,
Yeah.
taking videos.
That's right. Yeah. I want to talk to you several things today. One, talk about Chad, the father of 9 kids, you and your incredible wife. I want to talk about Chad, the business owner. I want to talk a little bit about your down over $1 million in debt, borrowing to kind of stay afloat. And then I want to end up with kind of where you are now, but more importantly, along the way, talk about, I think as entrepreneurs, it's easy to watch the highlights, right? It's easy to be like, man, they just got somebody's seen recently, you just got a $60,000 check. And it's like, go Chad. Except the authenticity of the fact that there's been lots of ups and downs, and there's been some major shifts, uncomfortable shifts to get there. But just start off. Who is Chad, and how are we here?
I would say first, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. That's my identity is all tied up in that 100%. It's woven through everything. I try to weave it as I should through everything that I do, whether it's father, husband, business owner. That's first and foremost. And, then after that is I'm a husband to my wife, sometimes that's easy. Sometimes it's hard. That's and the
How long
identity
you been married?
24 years. 24. It'll be 25 years. And we just got to 24. So 25 next August. But the father to 9, those first 3 things, that takes up a huge chunk of my time. Yeah. I mean, that's why, when you talk about my relationship with God, which encompasses so many different things in what I want to do, what my ambitions are, and have been for years, and my wife, my duties to my wife, what I want my life with my wife to look like, and what I want my life with my kids to look like, and what I want their lives to look like in the future is why I build business. All of those things are what feeds, and I'm glad that I have that. As I listen to, I was just listening to a Bible study this morning. It's called, what was that? Oh man, I can't think of the name of it now. It's great. I think I sent it to you, but I may not have. I sent it to Chris. But in that, he was talking about, hey, if you get that out of whack, if you've got, you're trying to build business, but you don't really have this, that's pushing it.
Yeah.
He said, you're gonna hit a wall one day, and you're gonna be like, what am I doing? But as long as these things are what's driving my business, then I believe it'll be. I'm sure obviously there's up and downs, but I believe it'll be easier to keep a healthy balance there.
I think as entrepreneurs, it's easy to get caught up in your identity as the success or downward turn of your business, right? And the reality is, money ebbs and flows, whether you're doing 100,000 a year or 5 or 6 million a year or more. The money's going to ebb and flow. And if you can know your identity as a king's kid, as the father, as the husband you are, as the man you are, and by the way, you run a successful business, or you run a business that was, when we connected, going through a tough time, now your identity doesn't change because of the difficulty of your business. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I've watched that transformation in you over the last year and a half. But take us back. So we're actually at the studio right now, where I used to rent an office here, and I was out in front of this building when we reconnected over a year ago. So kind of take us back to that moment and how we got here.
So that was 100% a God appointment. I believe with everything that I have today, there was a high chance that I wouldn't have been there that day had it not been for my wife's prodding to come along. I had work I needed to do, obviously, and she was taking the kids to around New Albany to visit some shops, and they have little coupons from school. And she asked me to come, and I said, I really should get to work. I think that I was meeting her with one of the kids. And she talked me into going to the first stop, and I was like, I'll leave after that. Well, as we were coming out of that first shop is when, I look over and see you walking down the street holding, 2 cups of coffee or tea or whatever. And I immediately recognized you. We hadn't spoken. It'd been probably over a year at that point, but I know we originally met in like 2016. I felt comfortable enough to you to just holler your name out, and you recognized me, and we had a dinner. I believe it was that same night or the next day.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that was at the Truca event in Louisville, where I joined the Freedom Life family.
And for any of you who don't already do this, something Chad, you probably should do soon. What we was doing that night, what we occasionally do, Leo or myself, will do a tipping dinner, or both of us. Some of our community do it. And that's the dinner we had that night, because something that happens is, if you're taking notes, you should remember this: no risks, no goodies. And something you find is when people are committed, when they vote with their wallet, when they put their money up, they're committed. Well, at a tipping dinner, it's a dinner where we pay for dinner. I hosted the dinner that night. I pay for the entire table, except everyone who's at that dinner had to bring $100 cash tip, so that when their bill comes due, that they can tip the waitress or the waiter $100. So it was 15, 18 of us at that dinner. Yeah. So the wait staff got 12 or 1,800, whatever it was, $100 per person. And so it was that moment, and I didn't know exactly how tough things had been for you at that moment. But when you said, I'll show up with $100, I don't think I even told you why the $100. I just said, come to dinner. Yeah. I'm paying, bring $100.
Yeah, you did.
And you said, I'll be there. So take me to that moment. What went through your mind at the moment? I'm inviting you to dinner I'm paying for, but you got to bring $100.
I don't know that I thought too much. I mean, what I knew of you to that point, I guess, just kind of put me in a mindset of, okay, like, I know what this guy does. He's inviting me somewhere. I'm going to go. Right? I'm going to go. I'm going to be there, and whatever happens is going to be something good. So it wasn't. I did ask my wife, and it's like, hey, what's going on? Like with all of the 9 kids, and she's like, yeah, you can go. I think we talked about both of us going, and she said, I think you can go, and I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'm in. That was the only real confirmation that I needed. So yeah, I don't know that I thought much beyond it. And as far as business or finances at that point, it was just I was in a constant state at that point of knowing that my business had to change. So maybe there was some level of, okay, this is maybe a part of changing my business.
Something you talk about, and at that season of your life, like describe at that meeting, the God meeting you called it, or something along those lines, as you're talking about that God-ordained meeting. What is going on right then in your business, your finances, and how is life for you at that moment?
Like you said, well over $1 million in debt. And some of that's tied to properties, obviously, but some of it's not. Really was maybe a little foggy, but not very far removed from what I would call the lowest financial point that I'd ever been. I remember we had a ton of properties that we had done fix and flips for years, and we had done really well. And then, so, me being the entrepreneur, I'm like, let's scale, right? And we scaled at the wrong time. We ended up, when the market was hit the downturn that it hit, we had more projects going than we ever had at any point, right? And that was coupled with some other personal things that had to do with our adoption and stuff that were all financial burdens that put us at that point. And I remember going to my grandparents' gravesite. I don't even know. I was just over there I think we're at a project that I was doing for another investor or something. And something prompted me to go visit them I guess I lived in a state of, weight and stress, but it wasn't like it was particularly different that day. But when I went to visit their grave, it became more overwhelming, right? And it turned into a conversation with my grandparents. Like, I don't even know if this is in the Bible, because people say things that are in the Bible that are not all the time. But the notion that, God will not put more on you than what you can handle. And I believe that in a sense of how much you can rely on him, right? Because he can handle it all. But I remember saying to them in my, in prayer, through tears, like you've got to talk to him for me, talking about God, because I can't handle anymore. Like this is it. And it was wasn't a long visit. It was a short visit there at the cemetery. But I remember, audibly saying, like looking up to the heavens, like this is going to change. Like this is like believing what I was asking for. And it was the very next day that we got word that we had an offer, that we accepted, full price offer on our biggest project that we needed to sell, which actually was our Airbnb that should have never been an Airbnb. It was meant to be a flip, but another story. But so that happened the very next day, and I believe it wasn't too long after that we had another one that sold. So it was things were starting to change when we met that day. Just a block from here.
Something you're talking about going through that time, and I think for somebody listening to this, you go through times, whether it's looking to get your first deal or whether it's going, gosh, we just had some success, let's scale. And then you scale and stuff's going wrong. Or whether you hired up a team and the team didn't go like you anticipated it to. There's all these seasons of ups and downs. And when you become so attached to it, it can rock your world in a big way. And something that really shifts for me, and I would love your perspective on this, is when I'm around the right people, when I'm connected with people who not only are aligned in being able to talk to God or being able to really connect, but also aligned in the fact that they get business. I feel like a whole new opportunity opens up. So like, bring to me that season of who was in your life and how that connection of us coming back together and us becoming friends, becoming closer, you becoming part of our mastermind community. Like, what was that transition for you?
So I think this is part of what you're asking. At that time, as far as people in my life that had some level of congruency as far as the way I think or what I was doing, I was really alone. Like, which I hear you talk about a lot. Far as part of the main reason that you guys formed the Freedom Life family the way it is, which I can totally identify with when you're sitting out there on the entrepreneur's island, right? Which is really where I was. I was not well connected. I mean, I had people that I was connected when we say like in the real estate community here, but I didn't have anybody that was like close. It was just like people I'd done deals with, people I'd, could bounce things off of, things of that nature, but nobody that was like, let's just go have coffee or have lunch, right? There was nobody. So that was non-existent. Is that kind of what you were asking? Like, yeah, it was very blank.
Well, because what I have encountered, and some people listening to this probably have encountered, is you're surrounded by certain people, maybe friends, who prior to being the entrepreneur, at least at the level you are, right? And if you go say, hey, look, dude, I got $1 million in debt. I need to talk to somebody. They're going, lucky you, right? You got $1 million in debt. I'm sure you got a bunch of assets, right? They don't get it. And so being in that lonely place is sometimes where you go, I just got to have a change. And that's what I want to ask you is like that inspiration. What do you say to someone listening to this who maybe is in that lonely place or in a tough time in their life? Like, what's that word of inspiration for the Chad? Imagine that you're talking to Chad in 2023. What would you tell Chad?
Chad wouldn't believe it, wouldn't probably grasp it, but it would be the silver lining, the good in this is you have all the answers, right? Not necessarily like nuts and bolts answer. How do I do a deal like this, or how do I execute this? But in the change in mindset, which comes from the people that you're around, right? So you can change the people that you're around, and you can decide to not be around certain people and to purposely be around certain people, which helps to change your mindset. Now I've got people that are around me a lot now that still haven't changed their mindset, right? But they have a much better chance of doing that around us and around people like us than they do around the naysayers or the people who say, just go get a job and work your whole life away and live in that way. So, Chad, all that time ago, he had the capability to do those things. He just wasn't doing them. And so somebody that's in that position today is, my first would be decide where you want to go.
Yeah.
Decide what you want to do, but be real about that, be big about that, and then get around people who are doing that, or people who are not even always in the same industry, but people who are thinking that way, and then, decide that you're going to change your mind, decide that you're going to change your direction, draw a line in the sand, and then, and only then can that stuff start to happen. What's the phrase, like dreams without action is, what are they? I can't think of I just heard it the other day. Dreams without action, basically, it's just like nothing really, right?
Yeah.
And action without dreams will set you up to kind of screw things up the way I did. But you have to have them together. You have to have dream big, and then you have to take the action. So
yeah, put the foot on the gas, but know where the heck you're headed.
Right.
That's good perspective. Question for you, because a lot of people either have a partnership, have had bad partnerships, as I know I have, or are looking to get into a partnership. But also some people are like, screw it. I don't know. Like, I've got burned by a partnership in the past. It's tough. And I know for me, having been through bad partnerships and now having such incredible partnerships, and of course, mine and Leo's, our brotherhood and our partnership in business as well. What causes you and Chris, another one of our Freedom Life family members, that partnership? You talk about working with Chris. You guys are doing a lot of cool things together. What's the foundation of that partnership, and why, in your opinion, does it work so well?
The partnership was born, I guess, originally was born out of, we didn't know nearly as much about each other then as we do now.
Yeah.
Right now, I know that we're very congruent in our faith, very, very congruent in what we desire for our families, what we desire for ourselves and our future. But then, back then when it was starting to think, oh, maybe this should be a partnership, I see that Chris executes, and he's got a fire in him, and I guess that's what he saw in me. So we were drawn to each other in that way. Just being in a room where I could hear him talk, but also then hear you talk about him.
Yeah.
Right. In the year, because you guys had known each other for a year or so before, I think maybe even almost 2 years before I came to be a part of Freedom Life. So all of that was like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. This guy's a high level businessman.
Yeah.
And then, I think he came to me and he's like, let's make let's work together. And I'm like, yeah, I could, those wheels were already turning a little bit. And then, before really, we didn't take an overseas trip like you recommend, but there was a time period there where like, okay, I got.
For anybody that doesn't know, by the way, Leo and I always say, before you partner with anybody, you're required to go on an international trip with them
to find out who they really are, if you can put up with them. But, the other pieces that I talked about first, the faith, long-term vision, the family side, I got to see, okay, there's congruency here, which makes me totally cool with jumping in with both feet with Chris, which is where both of us are at now.
That's awesome. What's that communication, or what's been the biggest learning moment? Somebody else coming into a partnership or struggling in a partnership. What's the biggest communication piece that's caused you guys over the last several months to flow together so well? Communication
wise?
Yeah.
I would say that's a tough one. I mean, he and I are in constant communication every day. I don't know if you would call it communication. I mean, we both understand the world. The world that we're in is mostly wholesale real estate. We're trying to build that out. We both understood the world of marketing and in the world of the numbers that it takes to execute deals, to make deals attractive, because we both had done fix and flip for a bunch, right?
Yeah.
But communicating through that, I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like a lot of stuff with us was really almost unspoken. Like, we both knew, we had at least enunciated somewhat, like, this is where we're heading. This is where we want to go. We want this machine, basically, that on down the road here, we're very uninvolved with, but it's running itself. We both knew that was the end goal. So as we thought through what it's going to take to get there, we were just kind of doing those things. I mean, yeah, we communicate, hey, I did this today, or talked to this person today, set this up today. It was almost like there was no question needed, or no, like, oh yeah, I knew you were going to do that. Like I was ready to do that too. So I don't know.
Good synergy.
Yeah.
I like that.
for sure.
What's the last, I guess, what's business look like now? So it's 2025 coming to the end. You might be listening to this in 26 even. And the last year, what's that look like in the turnaround in business? Part one of the question. Part two of the question, what's the next year look like?
So turnaround in business was, right before we met, I was starting to learn the world of marketing. I knew that as a flipper, I could see things changing, and I was like, I've got to get directly to the homeowner. Yeah. Like, I need to cut this middleman fluff out. And I was going down some avenues to do that, some pay-per lead stuff mainly, and then getting involved with the Freedom Life group. Got to kind of really ramp up that knowledge really quickly, because I had a lot of people around me who had done that, who had some pitfalls in that, there were some tricks of the trade and so for a good 6 or 7 month period, we were executing that part at a high level. And that was really just me making phone calls, driving to look at deals, dispoing. I was doing everything in that time period. And, created a huge amount of, I'll say, I always use the number revenue, so there were some checks cashed, a lot of checks cashed, but there was a lot of equity built. There was a lot of back end money, coming on some lease options and things of that nature. So in that 6 or 7 month period, we went, I think it was like between $400,000 and $500,000 of revenue created. I did calculate the amount of the checks that were actually cash, and I just can't remember what that was. That number's grown to well over 700 now. It could be pushing higher than that. I've really not kept track of that as good as I should, as Chris and I are building the wholesale business here. My time on the phones is really diminished, but you kind of rekindled a fire in me the other day I can take 15 minutes and call free leads, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm going to do, right? I'm going to do, and create probably a battle between Chris and I, and try to involve Isaac, my son, who's also a part of the business. So that was all built that way. Not really getting into the world of marketing, or, it was like some word of mouth deals, a lot of paper lead deals, a couple different suppliers there to create that income, to create a bunch of debt reduction through that time period, which we're still doing. And as we sit here today, really honestly, the past maybe couple of weeks, they've been hard for me, because I've been thinking, I feel like I'm still, and I am, I'm still in this phase because of this debt. I'm still working to the next, I'm not working paycheck to paycheck, but I'm working deal to deal. Deal to deal.
And I think that to that point, there's so many people who might be in this business, or wholesalers especially, and it is that deal to deal, or even people who are in the terms business, but they haven't learned profit first. And so the business is constantly, every month, is going, gosh, is there enough money to last the month? Is there enough money for the mortgages? And so something that I've seen in you is starting to develop the skills of a great operator. And that's what I'm very excited about for you at this next season, because you and Chris, in becoming great operators, allows for you to use this business and the wealth that you're creating to make sure it serves your life later and serves your life now. And I think that's a big shift. And a lot of people miss that. When they get into this business, it's like, gosh, if I get a $60,000 check, I'm good. Yes. And there has to be a plan of how are we going to multiply that? How are we going to manage? Because as you're doing the PPLs, those cost money. If you're doing pay per lead services and other things like that. I want to ask you though, one more thing. As you're building your wealth, you're building your legacy, you're giving back, you have such a heart for others. I love that about you. And Chris too. Chris, who is not here right now. We had him on a podcast a while back. I'm going to do that again. Chris has an incredible heart.
Yeah.
So as you're building this, I want to hear from you a little bit. The year ahead, you're building up a wholesale company. You're building up this partnership. You're getting back on the phone with free leads. By the way, fun competition. Anybody who has a partner, you, partner, whoever, you and Chris, hop on the phone, negotiate free leads, and whoever gets the most contracts at, say, the end of the month has to pay for something you wouldn't normally do, whatever.
A trip or something,
Trip, steak dinner at a nice restaurant you might not normally go to, or buy the other one a cool watch, or just anything that makes it fun. Not even about the thing. Because healthy competition is always fun. You mentioned, though, when the team was doing the pre-pod interview, you was talking to the team about leaving legacy, about maybe doing teaching like Leo and I have built over the last few years now. Tell me where that heart comes from to teach, to give to others, and what you would love that to look like.
My journey in real estate started just as, I know there's money to be made, right? There's money to be made here. Had a contracting background and pursued it based on that, and learned a lot, learned a lot of things to do and a lot of things not to do. And I'm sure that's going to continue, and I'm sure I'm going to continue to make a lot of money with real estate.
Yeah.
But I so identify with a phrase you use from stage a lot of times, which is, I don't get excited about boxes on dirt.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't. Do I get excited to see a big check? Sure, that's great. Yeah. But I get so much more excitement when, a student of mine, like I shared with you, gets his first $10,000 wholesale check, right? Yeah. Because I know that I'm teaching him how to change. He's got a young family too, how to change their lives, right? Yeah. So I'm much more excited about teaching other people how to make money in real estate than I am about making my own money in real estate. And if I learn other things to make money, I'm going to share that. I'm going to teach and coach that too. It just.
Do I hear a day trading course coming next?
I'll tell you a good example of that is I love sharing. It's still real estate. Not always, but still mostly for me, real estate is all the things you can do in the investing world. Your personal investments that involve real estate. Like, yes, that's still real estate, but a lot of people don't realize that is a big world of tax-free retirement savings that you can have. That is where you start to build that generational wealth. To be able to teach your family those things. So I have always had, even when I was doing things really wrong in my business, at that time I had a heart to teach other people to how to do what I was doing and give them a hand up to learn what I was doing or what I knew. So that's definitely in my future. Don't know all of what that looks like. I had, for the first time yesterday, a gentleman who was coming to our meetup. He didn't end up making it, but he asked me, do you offer any kind of coaching program? And I'm like, well, I can't remember. I said something to the effect of, I think that's something that's happening one day, but just, come to the meetups. There's a ton of information you can get there. Yeah. And get around some of the right people, because I don't really know what that looks like for me. I know we've talked about some level of partnership with you guys on that. We talked about doing some things on our own, but don't really want to get things out of order at the same time. So, but that heart and that sentiment's definitely there.
Something that I love about you and Chris, but you guys have a heart to serve, and also something that I notice a lot of people who start to experience success. There's two types of people, and probably more than two types, but I categorize people generally in two types. As humans, we're prone to extremes. There's people who either, what I say, get outgrow their pace, right? They start to experience success and suddenly nobody can touch them. And then there's other people who are so humble. And this was how I was for years, where you're so humble, you just think everybody has the same heart to serve you do. And you give so much to the wrong people and you get burned. And as we balance that, saying, okay, I realize I'm not where I used to be. So now I'm here. So your time is now worth more than it used to be, right? Your business has to make more than it used to because you're growing your skills, you're growing your business, you're growing your team. And at the same time, not falling in either of those categories is such a balance. And I always love, and the greatest gift that I think you give by example is your coachability and your ability to say, okay, I know what I know, and I realize I don't know what I don't know. Let me surround myself by people who do. And I want to ask you this one more question before we wrap the pod. How have you gone about choosing those people in your life that you allow to speak into your life?
I definitely say no more than I used to. And some of that is time, but some of that is just, we were just talking about you and I, before we started, we were talking about being able to do this with some, had a bad experience with an audio visual person, right? And being able to recognize that ahead of time. Now, you did with this
Yeah.
particular individual. I did not, but I do a lot of times, and I probably am not as forward as I should be. Like, I'm not going to just say, hey, I think you're a bum, I'm not going to work with you. I just kind of like shy away from that because I know that that's not somebody I want to work with.
Yeah.
And there's probably a way to be more forward with that, but so I'm cognizant of that. I mean, I pray almost daily for wisdom in my business, and I believe that is part of the wisdom that God grants us is who to work with and who not to work with. Not that you don't end up in a bad partnership, so that you can learn something,
Sure.
for the future.
Something you said there, though, Chad, and I think this is important for anybody listening and you're hearing and you're going, okay, I want to build a team. I want to help my son, my daughter, my mom, my dad, my family, because that's what I hear a lot of. I get to work with a lot of family, including my chosen brother. My sister works with us, others, and as well as, chosen family who we've built up around us. Sometimes, though, the desire to help others clouds our judgment. I know you've experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I've found, and actually Leo and I've talked a lot about this because his perspective on this is incredible. And my perspective used to be black and white. And I say this, and it's negative language, so you're not going to ever probably hear me say this again. But either someone was working with me and they were incredible and they were awesome, or they absolute losers and clowns who just didn't deserve a spot anywhere near me. And I developed that black and white perception from getting burned so many times. And I know you can probably relate to that. People listening to this can relate to that. Except I realize there is a lot of great people out there who just aren't a fit. For example, if somebody is going to be my full-time videographer, right, and travel the world with me, well, if their desire is to be home 51 weeks a year, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means that's not the role for that person.
Mm-hmm.
They can be great at other things. And so when I started to view things as a spectrum in that way of great people can be not fits, everybody I meet, even people who's not a fit to work with, is to encourage them on their desired outcome on their path. And that has made it so much easier for me because now I'm not ever turning someone down, really. I'm either bringing them in and helping shape them closely, or I'm giving them guidance on how to better shape not closely. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It comes with asking good questions, right?
Always asking great questions.
Instead of, like the videographer, like you said, you're gonna, what do you see your business as a videographer in the next year? Well, I think I'd like to be home a whole lot, and you're just like, cool, great. You might have some ideas for them, right? But
when I'm in town,
but hey, this is not the guy for this position that I'm looking for. So you never get into that because you asked the right question, which you and Leo are both great at.
Something I'll add to that, and I think this is a great way to wrap, and then I want to ask you a final piece of advice and question for everybody listening, is, as Zig Ziglar said so well, I don't have to worry about what I want if I help enough other people get what they want. And the only way I can help people get what they want is by knowing what they want. And so I would go into business interviews and it's like, I need somebody who can do this and this and this. Does that work for you? Right? No clue what they even want. And either they're going to say no, or else they're going to say yes, whether they meant it or not, because they want the gig. And so when I started leading by, rather than, can you do this, this, and this, with Chad, tell me about like where you're headed. And that is the greatest gift of all, because if you can ask better questions, some have heard me say with ChatGPT, Leo calls me one day, a couple of years, right after it's like just barely being born, right? ChatGPT had just come out and becoming available for users. And Leo calls me one morning. He's like, bro, you won't believe what I found. And I'm like, what'd you find? And he's like, there's this crazy thing, bro. It's like smarter than humans. And he's sending me screenshots of all the stuff it's giving him. I'm like, gosh, this is a smart machine. I'm going to try this machine. So I get on ChatGPT and it has given me the dumbest answers. It is telling me stupid stuff. It is not helping me at all. And I'm sitting there going, did I get the right site? Like, this OpenAI thing, is this the same thing? And he's like, yeah, that's the right site. And there's something he said to me that totally transformed my perspective on life and how I used to do interviews. He said, you're not giving it the right prompts. What's the prompt? The prompt is the question. Hey, ChatGPT, can you be, in the simplest of terms, this business advisor or this person, or advise me as this, or advise me from Bible knowledge, or advise me from whatever business sense or CPA knowledge? The better your prompt is, the better answers you're going to get. Except if you ask bad questions. If you say to ChatGPT in the most simplistic terms, where should I eat tonight? It might say, you're in New Albany, Indiana, go to the burger joint. And if I say I'm a 165 pound, 33-year-old male looking for a place to eat in X city, I want it to be X grams of protein and healthy, no seed oils, it's probably going to give me a much different answer. And so the better questions we ask, the better response we get. Whether you're building team, looking for partnerships, looking for lead flow,
Buying houses,
yeah. Talking to sellers,
yeah.
talking to buyers, selling houses on lease option, the better questions you ask, the more money you make, the more people you serve. But last question for you. What is your final word of advice before we tell people how they can reach you? What's your final word of advice for anybody listening to this who is either looking for their first deal or looking to scale up their real estate investing business?
Find somebody who's doing it, and who has done it, and ask them how they did it. If you want to know from me, it would be, start by getting good on the phone. Start by there's tons of money to be made in those free leads, Facebook Marketplace, Zillow, word of mouth. Having little Vistaprint cards and giving them out to people, right? That's not expensive. And then when you're good on the phones and you made a little bit of money, then you can move to the paid leads and things like that. But you'll get your first deal from those free leads, from driving for dollars, just driving around and seeing houses that look like they're empty and doing the research to find out who owns them. That's what I would be doing if I was starting fresh, with the knowledge that I have now. No money to start with.
Yeah,
I would be dialing all day long.
I love it.
To get that first deal.
Good perspective, man. How can people find you? Facebook, Instagram. Where do people hunt you down?
Yeah, I have Facebook, which is just my name, Chad McCormick. Also, my business is on there, Front Porch Home Buyers. We have it's not just a Louisville, Kentucky area, but we have a Facebook group called New
Not
Vester.
a true local. You live in Indiana. You said Louisville.
Yeah,
it's Louisville.
I've been in Indiana long enough.
They've run you, Chad.
It's called New Vester. It's very new, but it is geared around people that are new, people that want to learn about real estate, people that are willing to be teachable when it comes to learning about real estate and real estate investing. And I do have Instagram as well. That is also Chad McCormick, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't use it as much as I do the Facebook, but I'm working. I was talking to Brother Leo about how to build those social media brands, and so he's giving me some pointers.
Not many people more qualified than him.
Yeah, for sure.
He knows that social media stuff. Built way over 1 million followers. It's like second nature.
Yeah,
incredible things. Good stuff, brother. Well, I'm so glad you're here with us. We'll do it again sometime. We're going to have a fun time, and who knows, maybe we'll have some time to grab dinner tonight when this is over.
We'll try.
All right, brother.
All right.
That concludes. Bam!